Ecological literacy and sustainability. Narration. In this training session, we will explore what ecological literacy means, how it relates to sustainability education, and how these concepts can be transformed into classroom practice. Our aim is not only to help learners recognize environmental problems. We also want them to understand relationships within natural systems, assess the environmental effects of human activities, and participate actively in developing solutions. The core approach of the module. How do natural systems function? How do human activities affect these systems? What can we change to support a more sustainable way of life? Ecological literacy is much more than memorizing facts about nature. It enables people to understand the interdependence between living beings and their environments. For example, plastic pollution should not be viewed only as visible waste in the environment. It can be examined as a system problem involving production, consumption, transport, economics, human behavior, and ecosystems. Learning objectives. Explain the concept of ecological literacy. Establish relationships between human activities, ecosystems, and sustainability. Examine environmental problems through systems thinking. Integrate sustainability into different subject areas. Design activities that support environmental responsibility. Use eco-art and digital storytelling in learning. Competences developed. Key competences connected with Green Comp. Systems thinking. Critical thinking for sustainability. Environmental awareness. Pedagogical innovation. Responsible action. Systems thinking helps learners identify connections between environmental problems. Critical thinking supports the evaluation of information sources and proposed solutions. Pedagogical innovation involves combining environmental topics with project-based learning, art, digital tools, and local investigation. One of the most important competences is responsible action. The final aim of environmental education is not merely to gain knowledge, but to transform that knowledge into meaningful and realistic action. What is ecological literacy? Ecological literacy is the capacity to understand natural systems, relationships among living beings, and the effects of human activity on ecological balance. Know. Understand. Evaluate. Act. Ecological literacy can be understood as a four-stage process. The first stage is acquiring environmental knowledge. The second is understanding relationships. The third is evaluating the consequences of human activity. The final stage is making environmentally responsible choices and taking action. For example, knowing that water scarcity exists is only a starting point. Understanding the links among the water cycle, climate, agriculture, consumption, and local life indicates a deeper level of ecological literacy. Ecological knowledge, awareness, and responsibility. 1. Ecological knowledge, understanding natural systems and environmental processes. 2. Ecological awareness, recognizing the environmental consequences of human behavior. 3. Ecological responsibility, making informed decisions to protect the environment. If environmental education is limited to the transfer of information, it may not create lasting changes in learners' behavior. Knowledge, awareness, and responsibility should be developed together. Learners should identify an environmental problem, connect it with their own lives, and consider what they can do as part of the solution. For example, knowing that water scarcity exists is only a starting point. Understanding the links among the water cycle, climate, agriculture, consumption, and local life indicates a deeper level of ecological literacy. Sustainability. Sustainability means meeting present needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Environmental sustainability, social sustainability, economic sustainability. Sustainability does not mean protecting nature alone. It requires environmental, social, and economic systems to be considered together. A solution may appear environmentally beneficial, but if it excludes certain groups in society, it may not be fully sustainable. Learners should therefore consider who is affected by environmental decisions, how resources are distributed, and what long-term consequences may result. Systems thinking. Overconsumption. Increased production. Greater use of energy and raw materials. More waste and emissions. Ecosystem damage. Impacts on human health and quality of life. Systems thinking helps us move beyond simple, one-directional cause and effect explanations. It focuses on how different elements influence one another. Most environmental problems involve ecological, economic, and social factors. Fast fashion, for example, is connected with water consumption, energy use, transport, labor conditions, waste generation, and consumer culture. Teachers can develop this competence through cause and effect maps, concept networks, and feedback loop diagrams. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals provide a global and integrated framework for environmental learning. However, simply teaching the names of the goals is not enough. Learners need to connect them with their own schools, families, and local environments. For example, Goal 12 can be explored by investigating single-use plastics in the school canteen. Goal 6 can be connected with measuring school water use and developing realistic saving strategies. How can ecological literacy be taught? Inquiry-based learning, project-based learning, outdoor and nature-based learning, local environmental investigation, collaborative learning, problem-solving, creative environmental expression. Ecological literacy develops when learners investigate and experience environmental issues, rather than listening passively. In inquiry-based learning, learners formulate questions, observe, and gather evidence. In project-based learning, they develop solutions to real environmental problems. Outdoor activities, school garden observations, and local environmental studies help learners connect abstract concepts with concrete experience. Cross-curricular applications. Science, ecosystems, climate, and environmental processes. Mathematics, analyzing data on energy, water use, and waste. Art and design, eco-art using reused or recycled materials. Technology, digital maps, environmental data tools, and storytelling. Social studies, consumption, environmental justice, and society. Language education, environmental stories, slogans, podcasts, and campaign texts. The GREENART4ALL learning cycle. Explore, create, reflect, act. Explore. Observe the problem, investigate it, and collect data. Create. Transform knowledge into art, models, videos, or digital products. Reflect. Evaluate the learning process and the resulting product. Act. Share the product and initiate a realistic environmental action. Classroom application, ecological footprint. 1. Learners examine their daily habits. 2. They assess transport, energy, water, food, and consumption choices. 3. They identify behaviors that increase their ecological footprint. 4. They prepare a one-week personal change plan. 5. They observe the results and share them with the class. Classroom application, eco-art and digital storytelling. Assessment criteria. Accuracy of the environmental message, creativity, clarity, sustainable use of materials, and capacity to encourage action. Create artwork from reused, recycled, or natural materials. Produce a short video about an environmental issue. Design a digital comic or animation. Create a photo story, podcast, or environmental campaign. Case study, the school garden ecosystem. Which plant and animal species are present in the garden? What relationships exist among these living organisms? How do soil, water, light, and human activities affect the ecosystem? What can be done to support biodiversity? Possible outputs, species observation chart, digital ecosystem map, photo album, nature journal, biodiversity poster, or school garden improvement proposal. The role of the teacher. Act as a facilitator rather than the sole source of knowledge. Support learners in generating environmental questions. Bring local and real environmental problems into the classroom. Connect science, art, and technology. Encourage critical thinking and multiple perspectives. Help transform learner ideas into realistic action. In sustainability education, the teacher's role is not limited to presenting information. The teacher guides learners as they ask questions, collect data, develop creative products, and participate in solutions. Group activity. Creating a systems map. Choose one environmental problem: plastic pollution, deforestation, water scarcity, food waste, or biodiversity loss. Identify the causes of the problem. Show its ecological impacts. Explain its social and economic consequences. Present possible solutions and actions in a systems map. We will now work in small groups to create a systems map. Consider not only the direct causes of your chosen environmental problem, but also the social, economic, and behavioral factors that influence it. Use arrows to show connections and identify possible feedback loops. Finally, discuss how the activity could be adapted to the age level of your learners and to your subject area. Assessment and reflection. How could ecological literacy change your teaching approach? What is the most important local environmental issue that you could investigate with your learners? How can eco-art contribute to understanding sustainability? What should teachers consider when encouraging environmental action? What is the first activity from this module that you will bring into your classroom? At the end of the training, we invite you to reflect on your own teaching practice. Ecological literacy is not simply another environmental topic. It is a way of thinking that can influence teaching across the curriculum by helping learners recognize connections, evaluate consequences, and participate in solutions. Ecological literacy is not simply knowing about nature, it is understanding that we are part of nature and making responsible decisions.